Hey, everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and that guy over there is...
I'm Chris.
And Chrissy always is. How you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing
Today.
amazing. It's Thursday. It's
Morning.
football time, and it's a good day.
All right. Well, at least you're having a better day than Josh. Oh, I'm about to work or something. Oh, okay.
Besides
Okay.
a butt ton of technical difficulties, whatever. That's just
That didn't work. Oh, boy.
for sure. Not for me, but for you.
Alrighty, so we're Amazing Fantasy Football. We're here to talk about some Week 6 matchups, but it is Week 6, and that means that there are 4 teams on bye this week. That's right, 4 of them, and those teams would be the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, the Jets, and the 49ers. A lot easier this year without some teams and their bye weeks getting moved around than last year. Remember that, Chris?
Goodness,
last year with all the COVID and like moving teams around and everything. Dude, it was next to impossible to figure out like what teams are on bye that coming week and whatever.
Oh my
look like God.
The day before or whatever. Yeah.
And by last year, I mean like 10 years ago, dude. It went by in a blink of an eye, and yet it seems like an eternity ago.
2020 was tumultuous, so I think it went by quickly for everybody.
Same with 2021. Oh boy. Anyways, so we don't really have a lot of news going in other than I don't know. John Gruden resigned because he's apparently a sack of turds.
Giant piece of garbage. Yeah.
Yep, and their special teams coordinator is going to take over for him, I guess. I'm like, why the special teams get whatever? I don't care. That franchise is going to continue to be a dumpster fire, or will go back to being a dumpster fire, I guess. The fire got put out, and then now it's been relit. Let's hope that they like.
They played I think it was it last Monday night or last before, whatever. The last game they played when they were 4-0 coming into it, and then they played like garbage. I was like
3-0.
Okay, so they've lost 2 now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So it was the week before that that I was like, what's up with these guys? And then all the news comes out, and you're like, oh, I bet they knew.
Yes. Well, why don't you start us with your first matchup, Chris? Let's just get straight to the point, and let's try and have some fun in the midst.
Amen. We're streamlining the show a little bit. We're going to get right into Vikings versus Panthers. Let's start with the away team and the quarterback position. Cousins had been on quite a tear, but came back down to earth the last 2 weeks, leaving him at QB 13 on the year. Week 4 can be excused, I suppose, since it was versus Cleveland, not an elite defense, but good, I guess. Last week versus Detroit, yeah. While he had respectable stats against Detroit with a 73.5 completion percentage and 275 yards, the Lions are the 24th and 25th ranked defense in yards and points, fantasy points, respectively. Actually, that might actually be literal points, not fantasy points. Regardless, you get the point. The Panthers were averaging 10 points given up per game in the first 3 weeks and 28.5 points over the last 2 weeks. The last 2, not coincidentally, were losses for the Panthers. I think Cousins has a decent shot to bounce back here. I think they're struggling right now. I think the Panthers defense is struggling right now and had a pretty soft schedule the first 3 weeks. So I'm going to give Kirk Cousins a 3.75 stars. Keep him in that right on that cusp.
I'm sorry. Can you hear that? Like I'm pretty sure someone's letting off fireworks
outside your place.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Can you not hear that?
Nope, not picking up on it.
Well, I don't hear anything anymore.
Good.
Right there.
That's annoying at this time of year.
Do you really not hear that?
Nope, not a thing.
Yeah. All right, well, keep going. Sorry.
All right. On to the running backs, Dalvin Cook and Madison. Dallas ran all over Carolina 2 weeks ago. I'm probably not playing Cook, who returned to practice Wednesday with an ankle, if I'm Mike Zimmer. And if I do, I'm limiting him greatly. I will say this much: when these notes were made, I think there was an update today. I think he might have gotten a full participation in today. So that could change things. But let me continue a little bit here because I think I've got some ins and outs here. The Vikings have a bye next week, so Cook could effectively get 3 weeks rest for his ankle. The Vikings have to get a win. But Madison has played phenomenal, and the Cowboys ran all over the Panthers last week, as we said earlier. I think Zimmer and the Vikes feel good about what Madison can do versus the Panthers defense. Now, the caveat is that I think that Cook was close to suiting up last week, but didn't. So he could conceivably be at 100%. And if you really need to win, you're going to play Cook this week before the bye. That is the only way I see Zimmer letting Cook play and get his full complement of touches. Cook was actually off to a modest start to the 2021 season before missing week 3, 5, and then missing the entirety of week 3 and 5 and leaving in week 4. He was averaging 14.6 fantasy points per game after the first 2 weeks with 1 touchdown. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm benching Cook unless we get good news from the Vikes practice that he is a full go. And Zimmer says he's getting his full complement. We've been down this road before with Cook. So I tentatively have a bench rating on him. Maybe before we get out here, we can double check that practice report. On to Alexander Madison, who returned to practice Thursday from a shoulder. Filled in very well for Cook. In fact, he has downright played better. And while Cook is the RB36 on the year, injury, of course, and leaving the game, Madison is the RB27. Madison averaged 7.5 targets, 25.5 carries, and 112.5 rushing yards in his 2 full games, replacing Cook. I think Madison is the guy one more week. I'm going to give him 4 stars. It's a little tough to give Cook stars with my spiel here, but if he plays, it's a pretty decent matchup here. What were you going to say, Josh?
Breaking news.
Go ahead.
Breaking news. The fireworks are still going on, but more importantly, Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison practiced today. It sounds like Cook is going to be going.
Well, I would still like to wait till Friday to see if Zimmer or whomever, the offensive coordinator, Turner, comes out and says, 100%, he's great, full complement of snaps.
But you gave Madison 4 stars, and
so basically, I'm going to give Cook the same thing if he's the starter. If he's the starter,
okay,
healthy,
there you go. That's perfect
because that's how well Madison has been playing, in my opinion. On to the pass catchers, Justin Jefferson. Jefferson said today, Thursday, that he expects to play despite being limited with an ankle today. He's 6th in receiving yards and receptions. He's got at least 7 targets in every game this season. As I said earlier, Carolina has struggled lately on defense and had a soft schedule to start. However, Carolina gives up the 8th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and their top 2 corners, A.J. Bouye and Dante Jackson, are both in the top 35 of PFF rankings. Pardon me. Jefferson is on fire lately, and I expect him to continue. I like him as a low-end wide receiver 1 this week, 4 stars. If Thielen doesn't go, which we'll get to in a second, make it 4.25 stars for Mr. Justin Jefferson. On to Thielen. Thielen is tied for 7th with 4 receiving touchdowns, yet only 267 yards on the season. He is the wide receiver 18 in fantasy and hasn't seen double-digit targets since week 1, including only 3 last week versus the Lions. Still, he is among the best red zone threats in the league. I think the Vikings want to run, and Thielen could suffer a bit here. Not to mention, he does get Dante Jackson the better of the 2 corners on the left side of the field where Thielen primarily plays. I like him more of a low-end flex play this week. If he plays, it's 2.5 stars. I apologize, I didn't have his injury designation here in terms of what's hurt. I digress. Conklin, the tight end, since Conklin's 8... It's his foot, thank you. Since Conklin's 8 targets, 70-yard, 1 touchdown performance in Week 3 versus the Seahawks, he has averaged 2.1 fantasy points per game. He's being benched.
Just drop him.
Yeah, better said, yeah. He's not even on your bench. Sam Darnold for the Panthers. Vikings defense is 9th best in points allowed overall. NFL points, that is. Darnold failed to throw for 300 yards, threw 3 picks, and underthrew Robbie Anderson on a sure touchdown in the first half. Thanks to a ton of pressure from the Eagles, Philly produced 3 sacks and 3 picks last week. Darnold has been sacked 8 times in the last 2 games. Clearly, Carolina isn't the greatest O-line in the world, but they were missing their starting left tackle, Cam Irving, to a neck injury, who was a full go Wednesday, and I assume today too, Thursday. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he's all systems go. They also designate Pat Elfine to return from IR. Darnold said it's great having Elfine and Irving back.
They're great.
Thank you, Tony. He still gets Atlanta and Tampa
You're
twice.
welcome, Chris.
There you go. He still gets Atlanta and Tampa twice on his remaining schedule. So there's that looking forward. So I kind of expect him to, bounce back here against a Vikings defense that, while statistically looks pretty good, I'm kind of not buying it. So I'm going to give Darnold a, low end, tight end, like 15, 13, 12, 3 stars there. On to the running backs. CMC / Hubbard. This is that interesting, I think he got a full on Wednesday and then didn't practice Thursday. And this is a hamstring, folks. So it's looking more and more like he's not going to go. That's McCaffrey, that is.
It's such a bummer. I need him to beat Wonder Tech.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. Sorry. The Vikings are giving up the 14th most fantasy points to the running back positions. Matt Rule currently says CMC is genuinely a 50-50. I don't know. So I'm going to, if Mr. CMC goes, if Mr. McCaffrey goes, I'm going to give him his customary at least 4 stars, because every time I've seen him come back,
I was thinking.
Every time he comes back, they're willing to give him his full complement of snaps. So
it's not like, and
unless they're ready.
That's kind of what they've shown. Like last year, when he missed a crap ton of games with a hamstring injury, he came back. He played that one game, got the shoulder injury, was more or less out the rest of the season. But that one game, it was back to 100% CMC. I don't remember who was back. Mike Davis was just kind of an afterthought when CMC came back. I think after, sorry not to cut into your matchup here, but after what Chuba Hubbard did last week, which really wasn't much. Yeah, I think they're ready for CMC to come back.
Yeah, well, they're on a 2-game losing streak too. So yeah, they need it.
They really want him back, but I don't think they're going to play him unless he's 100% ready.
Yeah. Vikings are 11th in rushing yards given up, 11th worst in rushing yards given up. So like I said, 4 stars for CMC. We'll give 3 to Hubbard if he's the guy, just to get him in your flex, because I think he's got some juice. We'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
On to where were we? Oh,
DJ Moore.
Panthers. Yeah, the receivers. DJ Moore had his first single-digit target game since week 1. 8 and 7 respectively. Yeah, he had 8 in week 1, 7 last week. Still pretty darn good, but Yeah,
I was gonna say, I'm like, that's really not that bad.
Exactly. The Vikings do give up the 12th fewest fantasy points to receivers, but their last 2 games have a lot to do with the statistical improvement. And those came against the Lions and the Browns when Odell Beckham was just returning from his hamstring. He still got a decent amount of targets, but I don't know if he was completely 100% there. That, coupled with the Panthers getting 2 starting offensive linemen back, I'm going to give DJ Moore 4 stars. There are no other passing options worth discussing for the Panthers. I looked into it.
Thank you.
Robbie Anderson may flash here and there, and Terrace Marshall is just missing. And then, of course, they trade their tight end? Anyway, yeah, they turned to a rookie at tight end.
They traded Dan Arnold to...
Yeah, in favor of I get the 2 rookies messed up.
I don't remember who they traded him to. I want to say it was... That doesn't matter. It doesn't really, because he hasn't done anything there anyway.
They turned to Tommy Tremble, a rookie. He's not doing much.
Who has a couple of touchdowns, 1 rushing and 1 receiving.
Oh, nice.
Not in back-to-back weeks. Yeah, I fell down that stat rabbit hole the other day. I was like, oh, look at you, Tommy Tremble, a couple touchdowns. Other than that, he has done next to nothing. And even with those touchdown games, it was like literally 1 catch for a touchdown and then 1 rush for a touchdown. So
not reliable.
Potentially signs for things to come in the years to come. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, were you done with that matchup?
More of a dynasty take. Yes, I am done with the matchup.
Okay, let's roll with the Miami Dolphins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a battle of Florida teams. Not every Florida team, but 2 out of the 3. Does Tua come back this week? All signs point to yes. He is expected to be activated off the IR and ready to play this week against Jacksonville. They're giving up the 7th most passing yards at 296 yards per game, but only the 16th best fantasy points with 19.9 points per game. I like Tua this week. I like him quite a bit, but I'm not in love with him this week. His first game back, he hasn't played since well, he played in week 2, but he like threw one pass. He threw one pass. He didn't do much. He got hurt very early on in that game. So Tua's back this week. I'm
Fingers
giving him
crossed, but
3.5 stars. So and I
wow.
think he's more of like your QB2 in a super flex
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
maybe a streamer or something. But there's not like all the quarterbacks that are off this week on bye. Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston, Zach Wilson. I mean, Trey Lance / Jimmy Garoppolo. You weren't probably starting him anyways, so it's more of a super flex play here. I have a asking for a friend here in a little bit, Chris. Once we get there, I have the other half of my asking for a friend.
Mhm.
Let's move on to Myles Gaskin. Last week, the Dolphins had 9 rushing attempts, which was probably the wisest game plan of any against one of the stoutest defenses in the league. That would be Tampa Bay. Gaskin did get a team leading 10 yards or 10 targets and receptions last week. He caught all 10 of his
Oh,
targets, but that was with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, he is just the guy has an arm on him. He just
he
doesn't
does.
look deep. He looks short and like he can complete deep passes.
I
He
think he
just
wants to
looks
keep his
for the
job.
sure thing.
I think he wants to keep his
Well,
job.
yeah. Jacksonville is giving up 24 fantasy points per game um to running back. So I'm gonna give Gaskin a 3.5, a very hesitant 3.5 stars, just because I'm like, man, does Malcolm Brown rear his ugly head? I'm not really sure.
Is this an
Will
aberration?
Fuller,
Yeah.
yeah, Will Fuller, he's still in the IR with a finger issue. That's but literally a quote from one of the websites I saw. Um, Jalen Waddle, I'm going to give him 3 stars in Tua's return. While Waddle was very ho hum with Brissett at the helm, Tua gives him a shot at playing fast again and running deeper routes, which is better than his
Mhm.
4.3 A dot or average distance of target. He's accumulated with Brissett being his quarterback for the majority of his still young rookie season. Mike Gesicki, I'm going to give him 3 stars. He's shown that he can be a target monster in week 3, catching 10 of 12 passes, but that was for only 86 yards and no touchdowns. So good job there, Brissett. That's, but I don't know. I'm still the jury is out on Mike Gesicki for the season.
Amen.
We're 5 weeks in. He's had one good week. I mean, if you drafted him, he's no worse than like your
All
Noah
these other
Fance
dart
or your
throws. Yep.
yeah. He's like if you don't have. Anyways, we'll get into some names later here in my notes.
Okay.
Let's move on to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence. He's been playing better the past couple of weeks. And Miami is giving up the 6th most points per game to the quarterbacks at 22.1. Lawrence is not a terrible streaming option here this week. I'm giving him 3.25 stars, and this is kind of a I have like a 3-way quarterback question for you that is completely for a friend and not for myself whatsoever, Chris. So you get there, it's definitely for a friend, not for me.
Of
Friend,
course not.
not Josh. Friend, not Josh. James Robinson, it would appear that Robinson has crawled out of the doghouse that he somehow got himself into. He has 15, 18, and 18 attempts over the last 3 weeks, and he should get more this week. That doesn't mean he's going to, but I'm saying he should get more. They should give him the ball more. The Dolphins are giving up 25 points per game to running backs. That's second worst. I'm giving
Ooh.
Robinson 4 stars here.
Nice.
On to Marvin Jones. Just keep Jones on your bench or the waiver wire. It's not a great matchup, and Jones is only averaging 5.37 fantasy points per game over the last 3 weeks. Similar to
Hmm.
Jones, Laviska Shenault is like Trevor Lawrence is spreading the ball equally, but I mean it's spread on. There's not a lot of jam on that knife going across that toast. So it's just there's just when you're trying to divvy up crumbs, there isn't a lot for a meal to be had.
Yep.
Essentially,
Well said.
DJ he's still has an ankle injury, and there's 2 more weeks before he's back from the IR. Chris, what's your next matchup?
My next matchup is way at the top of the page where I was not. Here we are. We got Rams at Giants. Let's start with Stafford, of course. Apparently, Stafford had a finger injury. He ran to the sideline, last week. Sorry, I didn't say that. Stafford
Yep.
had a finger injury, ran to the sideline, had it taped up, and returned and put on a great performance. He is
Yep.
currently QB8 on the season. New York Giants give up the 9th most fantasy points to the quarterback position and the 11th most
Interesting.
passing yards in the league, but are really more susceptible to the run. And I think that comes into play here. I'm going to give 3.75 for stars to Stafford. We'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. The running backs, Henderson and Sony, right? Henderson has yet to crest 20 carries or 100 rushing yards this season, yet has been over double-digit fantasy points every week. The Rams themselves have over 100 rushing yards in 3 of their 5 games, but 2 of those came against bad rushing defenses in Arizona and the Seahawks. The Arizona Seahawks. The Cardinals and the Seahawks.
Arizona Seahawks.
Right.
A landlocked state with the Seahawk.
Yeah, both those would be very upset if they had to do that. Sean McVay is the type of coach, in my opinion, to tailor his game plan to attack his opponent's weaknesses. And the Giants are weak versus the run. They are 4th worst, giving up 4.7 yards per attempt, and 9th worst in fantasy points given up to the running back position. Sony and Henderson combined for 28 carries, 119 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns last week. So, similar to how they attacked the Seahawks last week, I see enough rushing work to make both Henderson and Sony viable fantasy options this week. 3.75 stars for Darrell Henderson and 2.5 for Sony. On to the pass catchers. Robert Woods. The squeaky wheel got the grease, and Woods went off for caught 12 out of his 14 targets and 150 yards. No TDs. Kupp still managed to catch 7 of his 10 targets for 92 yards. The lone Stafford scoring toss last week went to Tyler Higby. The Giants are 11th worst in passing yards given up and middle of the road versus fantasy receivers. With a run-heavy approach, both wide receivers will be fantasy viable, but not top 12 guys, in my opinion, this week. 3.5 stars for Kupp, 3 for Woods. Tyler Higby, as I mentioned, Higby caught the lone passing touchdown last week, giving him 2 on the season. The Giants have given up an average of 62 yards and 5.7 receptions and no touchdowns to Logan Thomas, Noah Fant, and Dalton Schultz. But those are teams that feature the tight end more. There are other tight end opponents. The other 2 opponents they played, their tight ends, Pitts and the Saints tight ends, did next to nothing. Therefore, I'm going to be really conservative here with Higby and just as 2.5 stars. On to the Giants. Daniel Jones. This is deemed my, quote, eating crow and injury update portion of my matchups. I was dead wrong on Daniel Jones last week and got carried away giving him 5 stars. I think his concussion at the hands of Jabril Cox, linebacker for Dallas, bailed me out, honestly. Dallas dominated that game. I still like Jones as a top-end streamer moving forward, but not this week versus the Rams. Since he is trending in, having suffered a concussion, I'm going to say he's fine as a QB2 in Superflex, but bench rating in standard leagues, 2.5 stars. It looks like, according to reports, okay, we already said that. On to the running backs.
According to the reports, what?
Daniel Jones is going to pass the concussion protocol.
I know, I'm just messing with
Yeah,
you.
I kind of alluded to it. Saquon, doubtful, hurt again with an ankle. I'm just, I'm shaking my head in reality, and I watched, I didn't listen, but I watched an interview on Twitter or whatever, and you could just see the headliner said he's very frustrated, and you could see it on his face. And I don't blame him, man. He really started to get his traction going there. So I'm just kind of, that's where we're at here. So we're going to just count him as out. That's the way it's trending. Booker, Devontae, if I'm getting that correct, played well versus Dallas, especially when you consider the game script. He scored twice, 1 rushing, 1 receiving, and had 58 all-purpose yards. Not terribly great, but again, 2 touchdowns, huge in fantasy, and he caught the ball reasonably well. And again, he was behind in a game script and got, I don't have a snap percentage here, but he seemed to be on the field.
This year's Wayne Gallman.
Yeah,
I get it.
Exactly. It's looking like Booker gets a start versus Rams. The Giants paid Booker to come here, like almost starter money. The Giants,
That's crazy.
That makes him a startable option. The Rams D is averaging 119.5 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown over the last 2 games. So Booker could hit pay dirt here and have a decent day. A decent flex shot. Actually, a little more than a decent flex option. A pretty good flex option at 3.25 stars coming from me there. Let's get to these pass catchers. This is kind of interesting. I always find it funny when we go down these kind of rabbit holes of research, and you're just like, I mean, I think we all knew that Kadarius Toney blew up. I guess the haters are eating crow right now. I mean, Toney is averaging 10.5 targets, 133.5 receiving yards over the last 2 weeks. The Rams rank 10th worst in passing yards allowed, and the defense hasn't been amazing. However, they still have Aaron Donald on the team, and the Rams are tied for fifth best with 14 sacks through 5 weeks. They're middle of the road in terms of fantasy points given up to wide receiver position. The Giants should be in comeback mode, and Daniel Jones should be looking Toney's way. Toney is trending in with 2 limited sessions this week with an ankle. Considering garbage time and the fact that Sterling Shepard should be returning and Toney's electric play the last couple weeks, I'm going to give him 3 stars. Shepard plays the slot. Toney can do both, apparently, so it feels like Toney's probably going to move to the outside. I think he did a little bit of both the past couple of weeks. The Giants lose, as I alluded to earlier, the Giants lose Barkley, but should get Shepard back. Shepard has been was averaging 9.5 targets the first couple of weeks before the hamstring injury. I think Shepard is a fine desperation flex with 2.5 stars. I have yet to mention Kenny Galilei. There's a reason for that. Galilei is doubtful with a hyperextended knee, and really, he hasn't been very good. I'm looking to keep an eye on this wide receiver situation moving forward. I'm going to give Galilei all the money, but Toney, I mean, I watched the game. He looked really, really good. Like, again, eating crow matchup. I feel like me, you, and plenty of other fantasy and NFL draft analysts was wrong about Toney and their GM, Dave Gettleman. Making it
wait. Did you say we were wrong about Toney?
Weren't you pretty down on Toney too?
The only reason I was is because of where he landed. That was it. It wasn't the talent or anything like that.
Kind of thing? Buried on the depth chart kind of thing. Like he was buried on the depth chart. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Exactly. I thought you were kind of on the same boat as me. Is that we weren't down on the talent of the player. It was just
he's
like
really raw.
Can he kind of like be the cream that rises to the top? Like in the sense that, is he going to outshine any of these other guys that are already like veterans on the team and have been working with Daniel Jones? Apparently he is.
I think my negativity was more like not necessarily twofold, but like 0.5-fold. Like I thought he was really, really raw and couldn't produce in his first year.
No, he was supposed to be very...
on top of what you said. I thought he was kind of gadgety. One of those kind of guys. But then again, I thought the same thing about Tyreek Hill, and look at me now.
Chris, why do I keep getting ads for like lingerie and like weird like...
What have you been watching?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I just got an advertisement for KY jelly. Like I'm like, what is going? Who is using this computer when I'm at work?
Your ghost in your apartment.
Yeah, it was apparently a pervert.
So I'll be flat out honest. I didn't give Galilei a star rating.
He's doubtful.
Yeah, exactly. He's doubtful, so
he's literally listed as doubtful, and he has been for the last 36 hours.
There you go. Onward.
Yeah, but I know that because I have him on a fantasy team. Well, yeah, he said
the Rams have only given up 1 receiving touchdown to a tight end all year.
He doesn't even belong on people's rosters, other than a tight end dart throw.
Yeah, I thought he had one decent week.
Not really.
Anyway, they gave a 1 receiving touchdown to a tight end all year. That was Max Williams of the Cardinals in week 4. He's on IR.
Tight end dart throw.
Exactly. No, not even. Given the matchup and the return of Shepard, I'm benching Evan Ingram.
I wasn't going to play him anyways.
That's kind of that. I was just giving you 2 good reasons. That's Rams at Giants.
Alrighty, let's move along to my next matchup, which is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens who can go because what they did to my stupid Colts on Monday night.
Well, and just what Lamar's doing. Go ahead. Sorry.
Higby here, Justin Herbert. The Chargers offense has really been humming, and that's a lot of it is because of Higby. I mean, he's going up against a Ravens D that just gave up 402 passing yards to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz and my stupid Colts just put up 402 passing yards on this team, and a lot of it is because
a little better lately.
They do well, yeah, and they do. The Ravens defense is very banged up with injuries.
Yep.
The Ravens may only be giving up 18.4 fantasy points per game to the opposing quarterbacks, but I really like what Herbie's chances to replicate what Wentz and the Colts just did on Monday night to the Ravens. So I'll give him 4 stars. I mean that's for the first 3 quarters, not the last quarter. Let's move along quickly to Austin Eckler here. The Ravens may only be giving up 80 rushing yards per game, but they have given up 6 rushing touchdowns, which is tied for the second worst. And the Ravens are also giving up the second most receiving yards to opposing backs, so 4.5 stars for Austin Eckler. Mike Williams, he is currently did not practice today with Thursday with a knee injury, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. He's got a slight edge on Cooper Kupp as the wide receiver 1, according to Fantasy Pros, which is the site that I think we're using. It's a site that I've been using to look at fantasy points. So anyways, I would never have told you that Mike Williams of all people is going to be like an elite wide receiver this season, but he's paying off
What
dividends
the
for
heck?
those who
Yeah.
drafted him, or even better, picked him up off of free agency.
Did that happen in
Um,
some leagues, you think? God, Lord, that's crazy.
yeah. So I'm going to go with 4.5 stars for Mike Williams, assuming he plays. It sounds like he's going to, but just in case he doesn't, if he doesn't, I'm going to bump Keenan Allen up to a 4.25 stars. With the emergence of Mike Williams, though, Keenan Allen has been the one that's taken the back seat here. Williams has only 2 less targets and 3 less receptions than Allen, but has 5 more touchdowns and 102 more receiving yards than Keenan Allen. So he's been a little bit more efficient. I mean, Keenan Allen was never a yak master, anyways, but still. Jared Cook. I'm sorry. So yeah, 4 stars or 4.25 if Mike Williams doesn't play for some reason. But if he does play, I'm only giving Keenan Allen 3.5. He's just
Not
been.
the guy.
Yep, he's just taking that bump back. Like he's bumping back a good 10 or 12 spots from where he was last year because of the emergence of Mike Williams. But let's move along to Jared Cook. He's just a tight end dart throw. I'll give him, I guess, 2.5 stars. You're hoping for that touchdown, like with him and just about any other tight end. Not everyone, but close to it. Lamar Jackson, I'm going to give him 4 stars for the Ravens. This is mainly based on his electric pass rushing ability. The Chargers are giving up the 7th best. Their 7th best against opposing fantasy quarterbacks. They're giving up only 15.8 passing points per game, but they really haven't faced a rushing quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Face it, there aren't a ton of guys that have that kind of rushing ability in the league at the moment. In case of emergency, break all Ravens running backs. Just keep them on your bench. The Chargers defense is
I dropped
pretty
Tyson.
good against the what?
I dropped Tyson, I think, last week.
I dropped Tyson last week.
Mm-hmm.
In lieu of,
I still think he's the better. Still think he's the better option.
I do too, but I think like
insulting.
what was going on in our Dynasty League chat, is that I think maybe he's struggling in pass protection, and that's why he's not getting the work.
I'm the one who called him out. God, it feels like 3 weeks ago now, where he blew a pass, and I think it was overtime. It's that loss that they had. How many losses did they have? One, where Lamar
2 or 3.
fumbled. Yeah. Oh
no, they might only have one.
Baltimore.
Anyways,
I'm in Baltimore. Anyway, Lamar fumbled because Tyson blew his pass protection.
Anyways.
Yep.
Let's move along to Marquis Brown here. It's a much harder matchup for Hollywood this week than against my stupid Colts and their anemic cornerbacks. I mean, like the Colts defense or especially in the secondary is really banged up right now. So yeah, Hollywood had himself quite the game last week. He has more than 16 half PPR points in every game except for that weird dud game that the entire Ravens team had against the Lions. They still won that game, but it had to go down to the wire for those two teams, for the Ravens to win against the Lions of all things. So I'm giving 3.75 stars or 3.75 stars to Marquise Brown here. Mark Andrews or Mandrews, I am giving him 4 stars. The Chargers are giving up the second most points to the tight end position. Look for Andrews to continue what he did against the Colts again this week. It's not 5 stars because what if what if they go away from Andrews again, Mark Andrews last week, if my stupid Colts are going to lose, at least let Mandrews win me yet again another matchup in Dynasty. For my stupid Dynasty team to be 4-1 is.
You have
I want to change my
Andrews.
team
Man,
name
he
to the
played
Scrappers,
amazing last
man.
week.
It's just a scrappy bunch of players.
Sure. You know what I like to do in those situations in my leagues? I look at my points against and points for, and I'm like, am I just on borrowed time right now? I don't have that off the top of my head. Are you?
A little bit. I am in the black as far as points scored and points against, but not by much.
Okay.
What's your next matchup, Chris?
My next matchup is. That's not it.
That's not it. That's not it.
I did.
There it is.
I did Rams versus Giants already, didn't I? Man, we're moving right along here, folks. We've got the Chiefs at the football team, at the Washington football team. Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure there's some worry and urgency in Kansas City this week. The Chiefs are 2-3, dead last in their division, and probably won't have. Well, I know they won't have CH and may not have Tyreek Hill for this game. More on that later. Mahomes hasn't thrown for 300 yards since week 2, but is leading the league with 16 passing touchdowns. The football team gives up the 6th most passing yards and the 2nd most fantasy points to quarterbacks. 5 stars for Mr. Patty Mahomes. On to the running backs. With CEH on IR and, well, he hasn't played very well, except for like 1 week. The Chiefs are forced to turn to Darrell 1L Williams. He is a good backup running back. Good enough.
Picked him up in the league.
There you go. Good enough to make him their number 2. Because, you know, they used to have, who's the guy in Chicago now?
Damian Williams.
Thank you, Damian.
Who, spoiler alert, is on the COVID list and won't be playing this week.
I did know that, actually. But I still believe they make a trade within the next couple of weeks. Marlon Mack, anyone? But that doesn't help us this weekend. Darrell Williams has averaged 4.8 yards per carry, 3.5 targets, and a half a touchdown in the last 2 weeks in limited time as a backup and obviously in relief of Allaire last week. Washington is giving up the 15th most rushing yards on the season and the 10th most fantasy points to running backs. Nothing too crazy. But they've given up an average of 3 total touchdowns and 98.5 rushing yards to running backs, including 3 receiving touchdowns to Cordero Patterson. I'm sorry, I think that's over. Is that total or over the last couple of weeks? Forgive me. I think that's over the last couple of weeks. Again, average of 3 total touchdowns, 98.5 rushing yards to running backs. And technically, Cordero Patterson is a running backs. I'm going to give 3.5 stars to Darrell Williams.
Depends on which league you're playing in, but yeah.
Fair.
Platform.
Which platform should you say? Yeah. But that's my rating for Mr. Darrell Williams. It's a freaking good matchup, man. So 3.5 stars for Williams. Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City wide receivers. Hill is truly questionable with what is feared to be a quad strain. Hill usually practices, so this is a little concerning. If Tyreek is out with his quad, Nicole Hardman would be the next guy up. He actually played pretty well last week, bringing in 9 of his 12 targets for 76 yards. Nothing too crazy there. It is a juicy matchup as Washington has given up the 6th most passing yards in the league, along with 10 touchdowns to wide receivers specifically already. 5 stars for Hill if he goes, though I don't think he will. So I'm going to give 3.5 stars to Hardman.
Heck, yeah, but that's my thumbnail right there.
Is it?
I got to change my thumbnail. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I did make it before last week's game. So.
Well, you're supposed to do it tonight, so it's kind of hard to wait till tomorrow for the practice.
I can swap out an image in 10 seconds.
That's a good point. Travis Kelce, pardon me. I think Kelce will actually be the primary beneficiary if Hill doesn't go. Washington has only allowed 1 touchdown to tight ends on the season, despite their defense being a huge disappointment this year, but he's still getting 5 stars. I mean, come on. On to Washington. Tyler Heineke. Heineke? I'm going to go Heineke.
Heineken?
Yep, definitely. We're just starting.
Tyler Heineken.
Don't they have a... We should look up Heineken's slogan or whatever. I mean, where to begin? We just went over the football team's struggles on defense, and the Chiefs' defense is probably the worst in the league. And in that, this game is the highest over/under of the week with 55.5 points.
Wow!
And we should see some points. So we should see some points all over the place. Chiefs are giving it the 4th most passing yards and the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Makes Heineke a high-end flex option with a little bit on top. I'm going to give him 4 stars. On to Gibson. Scott Turner, the offensive coordinator for the Washington football team. Coincidentally, I think that's Norv Turner's son. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's
Brother?
true. I think it's his son.
His son's roommate's sister-in-law's nephew.
Exactly. He said
Got it.
that guy said they are not limiting Gibson due to a fracture in his shin. Gibson has been missing Wednesdays like habitually for most of the season, but did get in limited session on Thursday. All signs point to him being fine. The Chiefs are also fourth worst in rushing yards in the league, but Gibson hasn't topped 100 rushing yards all season. But again, a high-scoring affair will give Gibson a great day. 4 stars for Antonio Gibson. J.D. McKissick, which I grossly misspelled, is a fine flex. There should be some passing work for him in this high-scoring game. I'm going to give him 3 stars. On to the receiving option. Hey, I just found my notes I didn't quite complete. We've already been over how horrible the Chiefs are on defense. This is going to be the highest, could be potentially the highest scoring game of the week. I already gave Mr. Heineke 4 stars. Scary Terry McLaren is going to get 5 stars.
He really doesn't like that nickname.
He does not?
No.
He needs a new nickname then.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's just that. He's a favorite player of mine, so I think he needs a nickname. That's all I have to say about that.
Let me put my brain to work on this, and I'll come back to you next week. Hopefully by the stream. Okay, keep going.
Hey, I'm excited about not missing the stream this Sunday. On to Curtis Samuels. He is on your bench.
I was kind of excited for you missing the stream this Sunday.
Oh, that's awful of you to say that.
Well, I just want to hear your regular voice.
Oh, right. It is pretty pleasing, I will say. It was kind of pleasant. Onward and upward.
The English accent.
Curtis Samuels is on your bench because apparently he aggravated his groin again. Moving onward and upward. Other pass catchers for Washington. Logan Thomas is on the IR, so we're done with that matchup. That's it.
Okay. Then this one's going to be super quick. And like I said before we started recording, I feel like I somehow shafted you with these matchups because this one's going to be really quick. It is the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Do you see where this one's going?
Running back for the Colts, and then
okay. So we have Brandon Cooks here. We're going to give him 4 stars here. This is based on if Rock Yassin and or Xavier Rhodes cannot go. If both of them do end up going, then I'm going to bump them down to 2.5 stars. It's not either one of the Colts it's not that either one of those corners are an elite set, but that, if one of them's out there, then it forces Cooks to move around or whatever. But Cooks is still on his way to probably another 1,000-yard season with Davis Jones at quarterback. That helmet really does a lot to hide that turkey neck for Davis Mills.
But yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I said Jones. But yeah, it's Mills. No other Texans players. Carson Wentz, I'm giving him 4 stars. I picked up Carson Wentz in our Super Flex League because of this matchup. Yeah. So now, Chris, I propose to you, and I'm asking for a friend here. Definitely a friend, no one else.
Does this friend have a name?
Definitely a friend. What?
Does this friend have a name?
Yes. This friend's name is John Johns.
Okay.
That's Martian Manhunter.
I'm gonna
John Johns would like to know is would you start pick one, Carson Wentz, Trevor Lawrence, or Tua against Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence against Miami, or Carson Wentz against the Houston Texans?
I'm going Wentz. Wentz.
Yeah, the Texans are giving up just over 20 fantasy points per game. That means I feel pretty good about Wentz this week. 4 stars is maybe a little strong, but I'm going to go bold here, and I'm going to keep my 4 stars. Jonathan Taylor, the Texans are giving up 20.1 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. That's 15th best. While Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines, of course, are cutting into his workload, and that's mainly Hines. But Hines hasn't really done much fantasy-wise. And really, other than a couple of good runs against the Ravens this week, Mack hasn't done much either. Like I said, have written down here, he's really the only Colts back that's producing, but he's only in on like 52% of the snaps. I really wish that the Colts would just kind of commit more to using Jonathan Taylor. He can catch the ball, he can run the ball. Just commit to the man. I don't know. I really don't know what Frank Reich's doing here. but I got to trust in my coach. So whatever. Like I said, they're my stupid Colts. Other than a dud in weeks 2 and 3, Taylor has produced more than 14 half PPR points in every other game. He scored 30.4 points last week against Baltimore. I'm giving him 4.25 stars against the Texans. Zach Pascal, I'm giving him a real sickening 2 stars. He's like his fantasy points have gone down every week. You're not really trusting any other Colts wide receivers here. Pittman had a pretty decent game against Baltimore as well. They're talking about there's a potential for T.Y. Hilton coming back this week.
I saw that.
Are you going to start him though?
Heck,
Probably
no.
not.
But I think it's worth to keep an eye on.
A speculative ad and stash, cool. And Zach Pascal, I came up with a scenario where you would start him. Here's my scenario. If you have Debo, Calvin Ridley, and Corey Davis all in buys, with Will Fuller and Juju injured, fire up Zach Pascal.
Is Fuller out again?
Yeah, he's on the IR, man. He's got 2 more weeks left on the IR at least.
Right. Okay.
And then one quick injury news here for the Colts kicker, Rodrigo Blankenship. He's dealing with a hip injury. He missed the first half of the Monday Night Football game where the punter kicked in a field goal.
Holy cow. I was going to ask you if they signed a guy or brought a guy up from practice squad or something like that.
I have not. I could not find that before our recording. They were scraping the free agency kicker market though to replace who has been called Hot Rod, Rodrigo Blankenship.
Yeah,
sounds like he's not going to play this week, and you probably weren't having him be your fantasy kicker anyways. If you do such a thing, I'm just throwing it out there in case you were and you are.
Is he or is he not one of the better kickers?
He hasn't been that great this year. He was last year. He was great the last couple of years.
I stand corrected. Go ahead.
You sit corrected. You're not standing right now.
That must have been it, right?
Chris, your next matchup is something like the Bengals or the Lions, or
I actually have the notes right on the page this time for a change.
I was hoping that you took my matchup, my albeit quick matchup, but still to kind of get to the right spot.
Yeah.
Nope, we talked about that matchup. Oh, we're talking about the Vikings at the Cleveland Browns. That's not even a matchup this week. Keep going, man.
Oh, did I do that?
No, I was just mashing up 2 of them that I have written down for you.
You never know. You never know with me sometimes, Josh.
Well, after last year when we both kind of did something similar, it's within the realm of possibility.
Oh, okay. What the heck?
Or last year when I did one of your matchups and then you did your matchup too, and I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, dude, I already talked about that. And you're like, yeah, you gave it to me. And I'm like, what? No, I did it. And then we had to do it on the fly. Granted, that was during a stream. Hey,
It's happened.
It's year 1, folks. Last year was year 0.
Speaking of the fly, Joe Burrow. No, I mean,
did they call Joe Burrow the fly?
No, that's Jeff Goldblum.
But it could be Joe Burrow.
It could be.
Okay.
But bad nickname. But anyway.
That's a terrible nickname.
He's been playing pretty well the past 2 weeks, maybe 3 if you count completion percentage.
Yeah, he's been kind of great of a fantasy back though, or quarterback.
That's fair. He's been on the cusp. I just coined this. I'm going to call it the cusp because it's kind of like that 12 to 15 range where you're weekly, you're you're pretty good real life quarterback, but you're just on that cusp right now. But he's been throwing for a great percentage. Chase is just on fire. Burrow threw for 348 yards 2 weeks ago. Last week, 281 yards, couple touchdowns. I'm going to give Joe Burrow versus these Lions a 4-star rating because the Lions, On to Joe Mixon. I think this is a more salient fantasy advice here. Mixon saved his fantasy day with a touchdown last week in the loss to the Packers, but only had 10 carries and 28% snaps. Obviously, they were bringing him back off an injury, so they were easing him in. The Bengal, if he can increase his practice activity this week, he did get in a limited session on today on Thursday.
It sounds like he's going to play.
Sounds like he's probably going to play. Furthermore, before I give you his rating, Samaje Perine is on the COVID list. Unclear if he tested positive.
He's not going to play. Not. He's out.
Oh, is that official?
I'm almost positive.
Okay, thank you. That's fine.
As I say that, Joe Mixon isn't practicing on Thursday. What the H?
I thought I got a limited session in?
Now it's according to SI.com, SportsIllustrated.com.
Okay.
/NFL/Bengals/news/ the latest on Bengals
Slash,
star
slash,
receiver
slash.
Joe Mixon and the rookie Dante Smith.
Does that mean Chris Evans is going to play, Josh? I'm not buying it.
Captain America played last week. I saw that.
He didn't
with
look
my
good,
own
though,
eyes.
apparently. He didn't look good, apparently, though. Let me continue here. So I'm counting Mixon is out.
He doesn't have the super.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm counting. Samaje Perine is out because of what you just told me, but also
let's put Mixon in and give him like 2/3 of a workload.
2/3, you think, and then turn to whomever else is on the roster,
and then we'll say stay tuned for the Sunday stream where you can check us out on YouTube and just search for Amazing Fantasy Football to check in for the latest, the last minute injury updates and the Monday night matchup.
If you're watching this video, turn on your notifications. You'll know when we go live.
And you can just click on the AFFB like little link thing on the YouTubes, and I don't know how it works. I rarely use I use YouTube for one thing, Chris, and one thing only, and that's yoga. And that's weird considering I'm fat. But keep going.
Yoga sounds great. Let me continue as you just said.
I said yoga, not yogurt.
I'm going to count Samaje Perine as out. He was on the COVID list, whether he tested positive or not. It's too quick of a turnaround to get to pass protocol. And Evans didn't look great. This could force Mixon back into a workhorse role. I'm going to give 5 stars to Mixon.
Assuming he goes.
Jamar Chase, tied for second in the league with 5 receiving touchdowns. Detroit gives up the sixth fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. But still, let me hold off and talk about Higgins here for T. Higgins for a moment before I give you Chase and T. Higgins rating, aka Tiggins. 7 targets in his return and caught a 2-point conversion was about the highlight of Tiggins a day. Still, we have to see Chase as the far and away number 1 now and rate accordingly. The Lions are worse versus the run, so I see a heavy Mixon game here, hence why I gave him 5 stars. Yeah. With Chase playing out of his mind, I think Tiggins is just a flex this week with 3 stars. I'm going to give Chase 4.5 stars. He's just on fire. That's the end of the
Timbers.
That's the end of the Cincinnati pass catchers because Boyd has been underwhelming and they don't have a tight end.
He just had one okay game and that was about it.
Precisely, and it was while Tiggins was out too. Tiggins is back. The Lions. Honestly, I have literally one note, 5 letters. Jared Goff is on your bench. Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. Swift has just, he's been catching the ball well.
Going into this week.
Both are questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh no, I did catch up on that actually.
Why did you put ketchup on it?
I said ketchup.
Catsup? Ew, yeah. Gross.
I've never said it that way. I've always thought that was the weirdest thing ever.
Fun fact, Chris, they're the same thing.
They are, but it's a weird name.
Who calls it catsup? That sounds disgusting.
It does. It absolutely does.
It sounds like a taxidermied cat that's has its legs straight up in the air. Catsup.
Cat's up. Cat's taxidermy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. It just So Chris, do you buy any other ketchup that's not Heinz ketchup?
No, but when I get the God-given opportunity to go to Whataburger down south, I get fancy ketchup. Other than that, it's Heinz, and everything else kind of stinks.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. And you know how ketchup? If ketchup's really bad? Like, don't even eat it when it's called catsup.
Yeah, with a C.
So let's catsup with this matchup here, and right. It looks like these Lions running backs are
a little hobbled.
Yeah. Question mark?
Big question mark there. We already did Goff there on the bench. We're going to go on.
So tune into the AFFB Sunday morning stream where you can have some coffee with Chris and Josh, and you get it.
For real, especially as it pertains to Jamal Williams because he's kind of doubled up here with a hip and an illness.
He's hip to the illness.
Apparently, they practiced limited on. When I say they, I mean both Swift and Jamal Williams. Practiced limited on Wednesday, but then missed Thursday altogether. Jamal Williams was due to a hip, and as I said, an illness. It is non-COVID-19 related. So, as you said, tune in Sunday morning, but we're really tuning in here Friday to see what the practice report looks like.
Yeah, but ain't no one but us got time for that stuff. So
Yeah, I'm going to
whatever.
say if Jamal Williams goes, let's make him a flex-worthy option at 3 stars. If Swift goes, bear with me for a moment. Forgive me, things are changing as we
4 hours
speak.
ago, Jamal Williams did not practice today. Swift with a groin was limited, and so was T.J. Hawkins. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'll get to Hawkinson in a minute for sure. He's been hobbled for some time.
Yeah.
If they continue to be limited, but they haven't missed any game time, it should be good to go for week 6. But barring any setbacks, so obviously if Jamal Williams doesn't go, we're going to be higher on Swift. Let's give Swift 4.5 stars if Williams doesn't go, more like 4 stars if Williams does go. And I think as a team, especially considering their wide receiver and tight end injuries that we'll mention here in a moment, they're going to lean on both running backs in this matchup, so they really need them to go.
I'm kind of excited to see maybe like this Jamar Jefferson that Detroit keeps talking about.
Yep.
Like, yeah, and like
I think he's got
maybe
speed.
Swift and or Jamal Williams just gets slid into the wide receiver role. I'm not trying to. I swear I'm not trying to take over your matchup, but with Quintez Cephas, who was not a fantasy option, but he was definitely a body out there as a wide receiver for the Lions. Like. Man, you might see a lot of two running back sets.
I do mention the Bengals here have only allowed 6 passing touchdowns all year, so generally I'm leaning towards benching all the Lions wide receivers. Let's move on to the tight end Hawkinson. Hawkinson's been banged up for a while now. He has been playing through his knee injury and got in a limited session today after having Wednesday off. Only 13 targets in his last 3 games, and the Bengals give up the 5th fewest points to tight ends. Still, he's the primary receiving option, especially with Quintez Cephas out with a collarbone. I'm going to give 3.5 conservative stars to Hawk. That's it.
Go Hawks.
There you go.
And I don't know if you have a bench spot, maybe think about picking up Khalif Raymond. He had a pretty good game, not last week, but the week before. But and the only problem is that here's the Rams schedule or the Lions schedule going forward. Bengals this week, Rams next week. Gross. The Eagles, the Steelers good, Browns bad, Bears, Vikings good. So like there's some. They're all over the map as far as like they just don't have a good stretch of. Man, are the Vikings gonna go like the Lions gonna go like 0-17 and be the first team to go 0-16 and 0-17?
Right. We're first. It's like when you go to the YouTube comments and you put first. They're gonna be the first to set that record.
Anyways, let's keep rolling here, man.
Real quick, you're good. Was it Cephas? I'm getting my names confused.
Quintez
sorry,
Cephas?
Khalif Raymond. The one good game Khalif Raymond had was more or less due to catching 2 touchdowns. So, hard.
But he had yardage to go with those touchdowns too. And I watched part of that game and he looked okay doing it.
46 yards.
Which is what?
46 yards. He got 3 of 6 targets for 46 yards and 2 touchdowns.
You know what, Chris? Never mind. All right, quit poking hole in my Khalif Raymond boat. Okay,
quit poking hole. Right. Next
this guy. Are you done poking holes?
I am done poking.
Okay, then I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. I mean, this is the battle of Midway here. Like this is the oldest one of the oldest sports rivalries in all
it might
sports.
Be the oldest. No, Army Navy in college. Army Navy.
I was going to go with Red Sox Yankees, but Army Navy is also right up there as well.
Like 1900s, dude. Like beginning of the 1900s.
Yeah, Yankees Red Sox as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's start with the visiting team, which would be the Green Bay Packers and their back Aaron Rodgers. I'm giving them 4.5 stars. Those 3.3 fantasy points that Mr. Rodgers put up in week 1 is really dragging down his points per game and overall ranking. And the Bears are only giving up 15.2 points per game to quarterbacks. But other than Matthew Stafford, they really haven't faced a fantasy giant like Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So I'm going to give him 4.5 stars. I really like Aaron Rodgers this week. On to the other Aaron on the Packers. That would be Aaron Jones. So far, Aaron Jones is the RB7 on the season. He's averaging 16.1 half PPR points per game. We go by half PPR. All right, folks.
Always,
Like I'm gonna
always.
stop saying that.
Yeah, we more
I
or
just
less
figured I
stopped
was
it
gonna
too.
really hit it in week 6, just in case people are like, "What? I mean, but in my leagues, he's been scoring 20-some points," and then I want someone else is like, "Well, in my leagues, he's been scoring 10 point something point." Yeah, like I don't know why I did those voices. But the Packers are, or I'm sorry, the Bears are allowing 104 combo yards to opposing backs, so that's pretty good. Well, good for Aaron Jones. The only problem is that they've allowed just 3 rushing touchdowns and 0 receiving touchdowns to running backs. I still like Jones this week. I'm going to give him 4 stars. Devontae Adams. The Bears are probably going to try and get Jalen Johnson, he's in his, I believe, sophomore season. He is PFF's number 11 ranked cornerback. And they're going to try and get him on Devontae Adams as much as possible. But Jalen Johnson likes to play 94% of his snaps on the perimeter, and Devontae Adams lines up pretty much all over the field. So they can scheme Adams away from Jalen Johnson. The other Bears cornerbacks are not nearly as good, so I'm going to give 4.5 stars to Devontae Adams. Here's a lengthy thing about Robert Tonyan, and it's not an in-your-face, Chris. It's more of a
I'm over it. Yeah.
This is why we need to stop thinking about Robert Tonyan.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I'm only saying that because I'm really not doing this to be an in-your-face, Chris. I was right about Robert Tonyan and blah blah blah. It was more, and now I'm making it sound like I am,
It's to
but I'm
steer
not.
our
I'm really not.
listeners
I'm
away
really
from
not.
them.
The past 2 weeks, the Bears D have Hawkinson and Darren Waller. Can we agree that both of those two are better tight, or what are 2 of the better tight ends in the league, right? Even though
Amen. Top
Waller
3 or
is,
4
or even though
easily.
Hawkinson's a little banged up. Can we agree on that, right?
Top
Yep.
3 or 4 easily.
Great. They combined for 8.7 fantasy points against the Bears. Not good.
Yep.
Um,
Bad. Real bad.
and Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Goff or Carr, but even then, Tanya started out the season in on 77 and 71% of the Packers snaps. Last week, he was in on only 60% of the team snaps, and that's probably one of the reasons why he's the tight end 33 on the season so far. 1.5 stars for him. We're in week 6. It's maybe time to start moving on from Robert Tonyan.
Oh, I dropped
Even
him.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
drafted him, it's like sometimes it's just time to cut bait and whatever. I think he has like 1 touchdown in the season. It's not good for Tunyon. And I'm sorry, like at this point in week 6, I probably after week 4, probably after week 3, really, I'm gonna start exploring different options at tight end, and maybe you hit on Dawson Knox. Maybe, hopefully, you did, but even then, I mean, it's hard to stream tight ends. It's nearly impossible, and we need to do something to fix this. But let's move on to the Bears side, and maybe we can circle back around for that in a second, Chris. Justin Fields, the Packers, they're just the middle of the road against fantasy quarterbacks. They're giving up 19.3 points per game, but Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith, who are the Packers' elite corner and pretty decent pass rushers, Zadarius Smith, are both going to be out for this game. That should give Fields a good chance to build upon a solid NFL performance, not a real solid fantasy performance last week. I'm gonna keep my expectations for this week pretty low, but a lot higher. Like looking into the future, I'm gonna give Fields 2.5 stars this week.
Not bad.
Maybe getting 2 3/4 stars with maybe flirting with that 3, but I'm not gonna look to start him this week. Damian Williams, I have him at 2.75 stars, but oh wait, he's on the COVID list and he is now listed as out. So let's move on to Khalil Herbert, where I just picked him up in one league right before we started recording. Like I have all the just bear with me for a second. It appears to be a timeshare, not that Williams showed and not the Damian Williams show with Montiel, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's going to be the Khalil Herbert show this week. Williams got the start, yada, yada. Herbert was slightly more efficient, and Williams got the touchdown. This getting so on and so on. The Packers are only giving up 18.7 points per game to opposing running backs. That's as a whole, not individually. And this isn't the greatest matchup, but Khalil Herbert is now in with Damian Williams out and David Montgomery out. So I'm going to bump Khalil Herbert up to a 3.5 stars. How do you feel about that, Chris?
I mean, Williams is out. It's aggressive. I'll say that much. But I tried to pursue him in a couple leagues. Probably more as a bench stash. But yeah, I think you're being a little aggressive. But hey, man, you do you.
Allen Robinson, I'm giving him 2 3/4 stars. I hate to say it, but Darnell Mooney has been the better receiver so far. This is
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that Allen Robinson is out slapping. He is out slapping. He is out snapping Darnell Mooney. But I gotta follow the numbers here. Darnell Mooney, he missed Wednesday's practice with a groin, but it sounds like he's going to get A-OK to start this week. As I mentioned at the top of the show, or the top of the matchup, J.L. Alexander is out on the IR, meaning that Robinson and Mooney are likely to go up against Eric Stokes, who has been good at times, and Kevin the liability king as far as the cornerbacks go. So I'm going to give Darnell Mooney 3 stars, and a lot of that is just like I could see Fields coming out and firing the ball all over the place. But Eric Stokes is more of a ball hawk than a cover corner. So, there's a potential for Stokes to get an interception here. But Kevin King is just. I work with a dude he's a big Packers fan, and he what was it, like weeks 2, 3, and 4 was celebrating the fact that Kevin King was out with an illness. That's how bad he's been.
Wow.
Cole Kmet, I'm giving him 1 3/4 stars. He's just a tight end dart throw, and he's end of that at the very low end. It sounds like Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet are being brought in more as blockers.
Blockers, yeah.
And which has really kind of hurt him. Maybe Cole Kmet next year. It doesn't sound like it this year. Still winning that bet though, by the way, Chris. What's your next matchup?
My next matchup is. Did I already do the Bengals at Lions? I did. Wow. I think we're moving along pretty well.
We're doing okay. Let's keep rolling.
Onward to the Cardinals at Browns. Kyler Murray. The Browns just allowed 47 points to the Chargers, including 4 passing touchdowns and one rushing touchdown by Herbert. Kyler is dealing with his shoulder, but I'm sure he plays and tries to keep his team undefeated and redeem his poor performance from last week. I'm going to give him 5 stars. Because
I'm sorry, did you say that Kyler Murray has a shoulder injury again?
Yeah. Yep. But
throwing shoulder?
I don't have that detail. Forgive me.
Oh, Chris,
I know. Disappointing.
I keep going, man.
That was 5 stars for Kyler. On to the running backs. Connor and Chase. I love how I put Chase's first name. Edmonds and Connor. Chase looked bad last week. Chase Edmonds looked bad last week, most likely due to nursing a shoulder injury. And Connor scored again from the goal line. He has 5 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. That Connor, that is. Browns are 8th, fewest fantasy points to running backs. If Edmonds is limited again, in terms of, like I said, shoulder, if he's limited again, Connor will steal more looks, putting them both in the low-end flex territory for me. Fence riding the poop out of this one with 2.5 stars for each.
You have the other word for poop written down, don't you?
No, I don't have any of that written down. I just went off the cuff, but I did hesitate. I've got kids, folks. What do you want from me? Nuke Hopkins has missed both Wednesday and Thursday practice due to a non-COVID illness. Hopefully he's fine and practices Friday. I like Nuke as a wide receiver 2 in this high-scoring affair. 3.75 stars. Basically the remaining pass catchers for Arizona: AJ Green, Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, and Max Williams. Due to Max Williams, who had become a favorite target of Kyler's, being put on IR and ending his season, I like Rondale and Kirk to pick up the slack a little bit here. Let me continue. However, Kirk has been MIA the last 2 weeks, so I'm benching him. I don't mean he's literally been out. I just mean he hasn't done much. Rondale Moore intrigues me a little bit this week because if Edmonds also misses, I see Rondale getting an increased role both through the air and on the ground. I am predicting they draw up some creative underneath plays for Rondale, and he surprises this week. But, similar to Kirk, he has been relatively unpredictable. That brings me to a kind of aggressive 3.75 stars for Rondale Moore.
Oh boy, I could not agree. I could not disagree with you more. But
no, right. Okay. Like I said
it's really
semi-aggressive.
The Browns' defense may not be elite, but they're really good still.
To be honest with you, I'm a little in between there. They're hard to figure out right now. They just give it 47 points. Granted, we love the Chargers. Chargers are a great offense, but I don't know. It was okay. 2 weeks ago. I felt like it was the opposite, Josh.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
You're entitled to your opinion. That's
Of
fine.
course. No, I just wanted to say, but like 2 weeks ago, it's almost like me and you were flip-flopped with the Browns defense.
I know.
Isn't it crazy? That's
when
what I'm
I said
getting
it, I was like, I don't know.
at. So I think sometimes it's okay to be iffy, and I think that's important to our listeners. That was it for the Cardinals side of the ball, because as I said, they don't have a tight end of note here because what's his face?
And they really haven't.
Max Williams is done for the year. Exactly. On to the Browns. Baker had his best game of the year with over 300 yards. I'm sorry. He had his best game of the year with over 300 yards for the first time since week 1. Only two touchdown performance of the year so far for him, besides week 2 where he ran one in and threw one. So I'm going to give him a very startable 3.25 stars in terms of a low-end streamer option there, because that's really what he has been. So far, Chubb has missed practice all week with a calf, and Kareem Hunt has a wrist and a knee situation going on here. So, I mean,
Chubb didn't practice yesterday, but he rarely practices on Wednesday, it sounds like, or hasn't been a lot
That's exactly what I was about to get to.
So it sounds more like veteran
day. Well, usually veteran day off is just Wednesday, but I think they're erring on the side of caution.
A lot of teams aren't really practicing on Tuesdays, and I think it's more like film room stuff on Tuesdays. It sounds like from
are they a
what
Sunday
I've
game?
been like modern NFL, like this past season, and maybe some of the last, is that teams are just doing like film room stuff on Tuesdays and not trying to wear their players down or whatever. But I'm only speculating, and I'm once again encroaching. So Chris, tell me to shut the heck up and
shut up, Josh.
Thank you.
It's really vague right now. I'm literally reading some updates here. The Browns have yet to shed much light on the situation, although a second consecutive missed practice indicates that Wednesday's absence was maybe more than a veteran day off. I'm still going to give him a pretty decent rating here. Cardinals are an okay defense, but Chubb is, both running backs, honestly, are very productive. I'm going to give Chubb 4 stars and Hunt 3 stars. On to the pass catchers. OBJ, 4 catches and 47 yards total in the last 2 weeks. And lastly,
yeah, dude.
Obviously, and last week when he did that, the Browns scored 42 points. What the heck? He's not doing much. DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones, caught 5 of 6 targets for 70 yards. Nothing spectacular there. Jarvis took a step closer in rehab, but he's not going to play. It sounds so frustrating with what I think is a good offense to bench all their pass catching options. I'm going to give OBJ a reasonable 2.5 stars. Maybe get him in your flex there if you're desperate. On to the tight ends. Njoku was limited Thursday with a knee, but he had a heck of a game. I'm just going to bench him anyway, dude. I just don't think you can rely on that. I mean, you want to talk about a tight end dart throw? Out of nowhere.
He's a real tight end dart throw, like a legit tight end dart throw.
Well, and he has been all year. I mean, until, like you said, comes out of nowhere, 20 points, fantasy points. But I'm going to bench him. That's the end of that matchup, sir.
All right, let's move along to, sorry, I was just looking at my fantasy team from the Thursday Night Football game. Let's move on to, this is another quick one, dude. Like I said, man, I'm sorry. I feel like I shafted you here. But this didn't look like it when I initially did the matchup assignments, which it's a real stupid but yet random way that I assign them. This is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos. Let's start out off the top here. Since 2003, I did some digging on this one. Since 2003, or '03, if you're one of those folks, following a mid-season head coach departure and starting with a new interim head coach, and that would be whether it's by termination or resignation, the new interim head coach has won, and said team has won only 41% of the time.
That's actually not that bad, considering.
That's actually not that good.
No, it's not. I mean, it means it probably won't win, but still, that's higher than I thought it would be. Go ahead.
Some of it was like, so on and so on. Weirdly, dude, I couldn't find Nick Saban in this at all. Remember, like, when did Nick Saban jump the shark with the Dolphins?
I feel like it was mid-season. Well, not mid, but it was during season. I feel like
it was in mid-season, so not like the middle, but still, it was within season. I couldn't find him on this list, but anyways, maybe it was preseason. I
He
think it was
probably paid him
preseason.
off. He probably paid him off. Don't talk bad
Anyways,
about me.
I, like in our Discord chat, I called Las Vegas the man behind the curtain last Sunday night or whatever. In reference to the Wizard of Oz, and that they're really not all that great and powerful. They were just kind of an
Paper
illusion,
champion.
and it sure seems like that. And they have been an illusion of excellence, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense has actually played rather well.
Okay.
And I'm not starting anyone on this Raiders defense or offense whatsoever. But let's touch on Darren Waller here real quick. Darren Waller, I'm going to give him 3.75 stars. That's a really low rating, but Denver is only allowing 4.74 fantasy points per game to the tight end position, but the only tight end of significance that they face is Mark Andrews. The best thing this special teams coordinator / head coach can do is feed the ball to Darren Waller and stop screwing around with these mediocre wide receivers. Real quick, Denver is top three is a top 3 best against quarterbacks, running backs, and tight ends as far as fantasy points allowed. And
top what? I'm sorry.
What's that?
Top what? I'm sorry.
Top 3. They're the 3 bet. They're one of the 3.
I know
best.
you've been saying it every week. I know it just.
And then they are top half against wide receivers. Don't get cute here. Only start Darren Waller, and even then, don't expect the moon from him. Let's move on to the Broncos side of the ball. Las Vegas's defense has played rather well to date, giving up only 16.5 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. I'm going to give Teddy 3.5 stars here, but it's more of a super flex league sort of start, that sort of thing. And even then, Melvin Gordon, he missed Wednesday's practice with a hip problem. The past 2 weeks, he's been nursing rib and lower leg issues as well. Is there a chance that Melvin Gordon is like the miles are really starting to build up on Gordon's tires here? I think so. Perhaps it's just midweek veteran rest, which it probably
Longest
is. And it's
season
hard
ever.
to say. But despite these injuries, Melvin Gordon is still getting usage out of the Denver's backfield. So I'm going to give him 2.5 stars here. But let's hope of all hopes, and in our heart of hearts, I'm hoping that Melvin Gordon sits this week so that the Denver Broncos can see what they have in Javonte Williams.
Amen.
Or we can see that Javonte Williams ain't all that. So, let's see it one way or the other.
At least we would have some
that
clarity.
Way I can dump Javonte, or I can keep him on my roster, because there are some times where I'm just like, dude, you are getting close to getting cut here. The Raiders are giving up the 7th most points per game to the running back position. So even if Gordon does play, Williams isn't the worst option out there. In this same matchup, I wouldn't sit Josh Jacobs over Williams. What do you think, Chris? I just
sit Josh Jacobs over his backup? I'm sorry?
Josh Jacobs or Javonte Williams?
Oh. Assuming Gordon is out?
Friend, this is in general.
Gordon is out? Is that what you're on this premise?
Doesn't matter. If Gordon is out, I think it's obviously Williams.
I think so too. Otherwise, I think it's the Raiders guy. I think it's
okay. Yeah. You're like, but you can't even say his name. It's the Raiders guy. Let's move on to Cortland Sutton. Despite the Raiders corners playing okay, this is a good to okay matchup.
Jacobs
for him. He had a great game against the Steelers last week, but that's not saying much. But he could very well do it again. This is Cortland Sutton, so I'm going to give him 4 stars. Let's move on to Tim Patrick here. 3.25 stars. If you don't know who Tim Patrick is, you've been asleep in a bomb shelter. He's not an elite talent, but he's quietly the wide receiver 30 on the season. 1 spot below Cortland Sutton, too. Patrick is averaging 10.6 fantasy points per game, so he should be in consideration for your flex spot. What about this one, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Tim Patrick or Josh Jacobs?
Jacobs.
Interesting. I think it's Patrick, but it's very, very, very close. Let's go to Noah Fant here. If you drafted Noah Fant like this guy in a league, you're keeping him in your lineup, but I think you're keeping in your lineup unless you... I'm sorry. You're keeping Noah Fant in your lineup unless you picked up Dawson Knox in free agency. He's really been disappointing, but he's in on 85.8% of the Broncos snaps. He's just not getting the yardage or enough touchdowns to really keep you happy. But what else? I mean, really, what are you going to do? Like Noah Fant or Tyler Higby? Flip a coin. It doesn't matter, you know?
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. What's your next matchup, man? I'm getting close to the end. You should be on your last one.
I was about to say I started, so it's my
I
last
gave you
one.
I gave you the Arizona one on purpose because I'm like, no, I'm not doing
Kyler again.
6
And I gave him
weeks.
5 stars. And I gave him like 4.5 last week or something really close like that.
Yeah.
And he had a bad week to be, I was
Drink.
wrong. I didn't
Just
say
drink.
it. I am constantly. All right. Cowboys at Patriots, man. I don't have the point spread in front of me. I assume the Cowboys are pretty well favored, maybe even by an entire touchdown, maybe 6 points. I don't know. But let's go on to Dak here because I think you might be surprised about a couple of my takes here. No surprise that the Pats are good versus the pass, giving up the 5th fewest passing yards and the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Despite giving up 3 touchdowns to Davis, this is my real neck Mills. Belichick probably tries to take away Dak and Kellen Moore, the play caller. I'm sorry, probably tries to take away Dak. And Kellen Moore, the play caller for Dallas, has been tailoring his game plan to the opponent. So
Wait, is he still the OC there?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Good job, Kellen Moore. Keep going.
He might be the head coach in a couple years. We'll see. We'll pull the whole frickin' Jason
Maybe
Garrett
less than a
and
couple.
waiting thing and all that BS, whatever. But he's been a really good play caller, man.
Mike McCarthy still needs analytics in his time off.
I was going to make a point earlier. You said something about a coach. I'm not going to get into it. Forgive me which name it was. But like sometimes, it's a special teams guy. You were surprised he was named the guy. Sometimes the guy that has a little more time in his hands, meaning he's not the one calling the offensive or defensive plays, is the guy that can manage the team better. So that's just a thing
Joe
I want to add in
Judge.
there. Right. So where was I?
Just saying.
I know. I hear you. That's funny. Kellen Moore, the play caller, has been tailoring his game plan to the opponents. So I see Dak only having a decent day here with 3.75 stars on to the runners. Given I see the Pats trying to take away the pass, both backs can eat here. Packs are kind of middle of the road versus the run at 18th most rushing yards allowed and 10th fewest fantasy points. That's pretty decent. I think we see tons of carries and underneath passes to both backs this week. 4 stars for Zeke, 3.5 stars for Pollard. On to the, actual pass catchers, I guess you want to call it. Amari, with 4 touchdowns on the year, Amari should be okay as one of Dak's favorite red zone targets. But make no mistake, he is a wide receiver 2 now. And as I said, there will be a concerted effort to stop Dak and his passing options. Still, I expect some red zone looks for Amari. I'm going to give him 3.5 stars. On to CD Lamb. The run-heavy approach has hurt CD in the past weeks. So this week, he's a low-end wide receiver 2 for me with 2.75 stars.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, go ahead.
You're really missing an opportunity as I'm looking on our bet board over here to rub in the face that Amari Cooper is taking CD behind the woodshed at the moment.
Yeah, but honestly, both of them have been hurt.
Just giving him light little swats, but he's not whipping the belt out or anything, but taking him behind the woodshed.
Yeah, it's honestly been a little bad for both receivers, but again, Amari with the 4 touchdowns.
Well,
and
it
being
doesn't help
target.
help when Dak is the quarterback 20 on the season, and guys like Jameis Winston and Taylor Heineken.
Is that low still?
No, I'm just messing with you.
Okay, thank you. I was like
10.
After what was that bad week he had? I forget the opponent, but it was like, yeah, he dropped down quite a bit to like the teens or something.
Yeah, he was definitely in the high teens.
Since then, he threw like 4 touchdowns last week or something. I don't recall, but let's go on the tight ends because
week 2, by the way, week 2.
There you go. Thank you. Week 2. So we got the receivers done here. Let's go on to the tight ends, or should I say the tight end? It's so hilarious. I literally made an egregious typo here. I put Jarwin instead of Schultz. Schultz has seized the starting tight end job over the last couple weeks and is the tight end 4 on the season. Schultz has not been hurt by the run-heavy approach. Pats are number 1 in yards versus tight ends. Still, given that I feel a little bit more of a run-heavy approach here with the backs, and I've got a pretty decently low rating on CD, I think Schultz can eat again, so to speak. I'm going to give him 3.5 stars, and obviously I'm going to bench Jarwin. Like, Schultz is far and away the starter now. He's played better. I didn't see it coming. I did not, but it happened.
Nope, no, I don't think no one did.
Well, Jarwin looked so good last year, or year before.
You mean last year for like the 4
He
games
got
they played
hurt
in?
before he got hurt, but also
And
2019
so
a little
far,
bit.
Dalton Schultz is the 15th most. He has played in the 15th most snaps out of all tight ends in the league.
He is
He
always on
is
the field,
out. He is out
it feels like.
snapping Blake Jarwin 72-51.
Good call. Thank you for looking that up. I appreciate that.
Yep,
That
you're
was
welcome.
great.
That's what we're here.
On to the
Partners.
Patriots. I literally only put one player on this because, I understand Dallas has given up some yards here and there, but they're actually a pretty darn good defense. So I only put Damon Harris in here for the Patriots because you're not going to play Mac Jones, obviously.
Damian Williams got a dude.
Did
There
I
are
say
too many
Williams?
players for the name of Williams.
Did I say
we were
Williams?
joking preseason about more, but dude, there are so many Williams players
There
in the
is.
league right now.
Daryl,
There's Mike
Damian.
Williams. There's Damian Williams. There's
Did I say
Darryl
Williams or did I say
there's
Harris?
Jamal Williams.
I meant Damon Harris if I said Williams. He's got some ribs
That's
issues
my
here.
bad. I said.
Oh,
Williams.
did you superimpose that? That's fine. We can
Damn
move
it,
right
I'm
along.
sorry.
It's fine. Last matchup, or at least last for me. Patriots. Damien Harris. He's got a rib issue here. It's not serious. He got in limited session today on Thursday. He should be fine. Dallas is 5th best in rushing yards allowed. I think I discussed it last week, maybe even the week before, where teams have to throw against Dallas. So that's going to be a little inflated in terms of how good they are in rushing yards and etc. But they're still a pretty darn good defense. I just want to make that point. I said 5th best in rushing yards, 5th fewest points allowed to fantasy running backs. That's pretty significant. I'm going to give Damon Harris, but Damon Harris is still in your lineup in my opinion. He's been over double digits every week in fantasy points. He's a low end flex 2.75 stars, and that's all my matchups, sir.
Real quick, as soon as I can locate where the stupid team is, since James White went down, none of these running backs are really getting a ton of like targets.
Well, we never
James,
think Harris is going to get targets, so it's more of a just a
right, but I'm
running
just
backs are
saying,
so
like, I'm just
bad.
saying, Ramondre Stevens and Brandon Bolden. Brandon Bolden does have the exact same amount of targets as James White at 14. I'm just saying, like.
If
Like
Harris
people
is
were thinking,
out,
oh, JJ Taylor's going to come in and get
No.
all the targets, and
I mean, maybe if you have room on your bench to speculate, that's fine. But if Harris is out, don't start any of the team, period.
No. I don't know why I'm doing this, boys.
Is that
Seattle Seahawks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson, he is expected to miss 4 to 8 weeks following an injury to his right middle finger. Darn it.
Sorry.
No, it's cool, man. It's cool. That is everything that I've read on Russell Wilson's injury. He just had surgery past week. So that would put him right around in the week 10 to 14 range. So like NFL week 10 to NFL week 14 range that he'll come back.
Hand,
that's a bit of a it is on the of course it's on a throwing hand.
Of course, yeah.
That's a bit of a while. Geno Smith, he's a good backup quarterback, but that doesn't make him a good NFL starting quarterback.
Or fantasy starting quarterback for that matter.
Yes. Let's see what he can do against the Steelers this week. I didn't even give Geno a grade because I really don't care. DK Metcalf, this should be a 5-star matchup here, but it's just a 3.25-star matchup with Russell out. The Steelers have been getting gashed by wideouts, so there's hope for Lockett and Metcalf. I'm not saying to sit him, but really lower your expectations, folks. I'm giving Tyler Lockett 3 stars. Chris Carson, he's got a neck injury. He did not practice Wednesday, but he was supposed to today. I couldn't find if he actually did. It's not a good matchup for Carson, especially with the Steelers looking for more rushing plays, probably with Russell Wilson out and with Geno at the helm. The Steelers are giving up just 12.1 points per game to the running back position. So 2.5 stars for Chris Carson, and it's probably more like a bench grade considering he's got a neck injury. And this is where my notes get a little skinny here. Juju, Ben, I'm giving him 3.5 stars, and I think it was any other quarterback.
I'm sorry, Juju or Ben?
Ben.
Okay, thank you.
I said Juju, and I circled around to Ben because I wanted to get back to Juju here in a second. Big Ben, I'm giving him 3.5 stars, and really, honestly, I'd probably give Geno Smith. If Geno Smith was playing for the Steelers right now, I'd probably give him 3.5 stars too. That's how little I kind of think of Ben Roethlisberger at the moment. He's just a capable backup, and I don't know, man. Anyways, so I'm giving him 3.5 stars. The Seattle's defense, I think, almost top to bottom at the moment, is really, really bad. and we're gonna get to Najee Harris in a second. But let's go with Juju here. He's on the season-ending IR. He has a labral tear, which it was some muscle in his shoulder. He is going to have surgery, and which is expected to have a 4-month recovery time. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Juju
I'm not
is
dead yet.
dead.
I'm not dead yet.
Yeah, he's dead. Oh, you'll be dead in a week. Thank you for getting that reference. Chris Harris, I'm sorry, not Chris. Najee Harris. I'm giving him 4 stars. The Seattle's run D is atrocious. I'm only giving him 4 just because even the Seahawks defensive front can overcome the Pittsburgh offensive front. Dude, Pittsburgh's offensive line. You were hoping for a resurgence or a rebuild to greatness, and not so much.
I was also hoping on the Rookie of the Year effect on Ben's elbow.
Right.
I thought that.
I said hope. I didn't say you were banking on it. I said you were hoping. I didn't mix my words up there.
I missed it bad, but go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I said you were hoping. Anyways, I'm going to Chase. I'm moving on to Chase Claypool. I'm giving him 4.25 stars here. Juju's out. I like what Claypool did last week, and Deontay Johnson. I'm going to give him 4, or actually, I'm going to give him 3.75 stars. Last week, Chase Claypool had 6 targets. He had the most targets out of any pass catcher for the Steelers.
He out-targeted Deontay. Wow.
Yep. He out-targeted him 6-2. It wasn't a lot of targets to go around for these guys.
My bad.
Najee Harris had 5 targets last week. But Claypool caught 5 of his 6 targets for 130 yards receiving. I'm assuming 120 of those were after the catch, knowing Big Ben.
Guy.
And but Deontay Johnson saved his day with a touchdown, and Chase Claypool got one as well. So I am going to give Claypool the edge here and hope that this is kind of the emergence of Claypool.
Could be.
With Juju being out and not gumming up the works. James Washington, I could care less about. Chris, that is all our matchup.
That's nice. I like it, man. Let's get this show finished up. And tune in next week, folks. Not next week. Tune in Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central for our stream.
That's next week, Chris.
That's fair. I set my calendar. My Google Calendar is Monday is the first day, and I know that's weird, but
what are you, non-American? Like pretty much everywhere else in the world, the calendar starts on a Monday.
Does it really? I had no idea. I'm going to be honest. I had no idea.
Monday.
I feel so cosmopolitan
so just
now.
Like Mondays.
I feel so cosmopolitan and sophisticated, like I'm using centimeters and stuff. I'm kidding, but no, I didn't know that.
Cinnamon?
Centimeters. Metric. I should have said metric.
The metric system.
I feel so sophisticated, like I'm otherworldly. Not otherworldly. Anyway.
Cultural.
Thank you. Yes.
Multicultural.
Yep. That's me, Mr. Multicultural.
Hey, Chris. Real quick, you like tech and everything. So I recently got a new graphics card, an RTX 3060 Ti, not to flex or anything. So guess how much I got for my 1660 Super?
Did you sell it already?
Guess how much I got for it?
$400.
I don't know yet. I haven't actually posted it.
Okay. It could happen. 400 could happen. You paid 300.
I'm not gonna get my hopes up for that.
Ish.
Anyways, that's been our show. Hopefully this new format of sprinkling the injuries within the news has shortened this just by a bit of a whisker. And I had some other things to screw around with, and I don't remember what they are now. But if you are listening to us in podcast format, you can check us out on YouTube and just go to YouTube and search for Amazing Fantasy Football. That's us. We do, as we've mentioned a couple of times, we do a stream Sunday mornings. We start at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We don't know where you live, so you do the math. We really do know where you live, though. But we don't. But we do. If you are watching us in YouTube format and you want just get the audio version, you can check us out in podcast format where podcasts are available. Please rate and review where possible in Podcast Addict or Apple, iTunes, whatever they're calling it now. Leave us a review. Maybe we'll read them on the air if you do. And you can always check us out and wherever you get your podcasts, like I said. And Chris, I think that's the show. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. Have a good bye.